The civilians in Gaza overwhelmingly support Hamas. Do you really think that peace is achievable?
Even though we didn't create their suffering, we have the power to be able to resolve it. No child is born
Evil,
right?
Agreed.
They're born pure.
Agreed.
And so this is a problem. You go to the source of where it's causing it and not to the symptoms of what's created.
Agreed.
I'm here in New York City with the NYU students in Washington Square Park, and we're here to have some conversations with people who are passionate about Israel, the Jewish people, the Palestinians, and about our future. So let's see what they have to say. Yalla, let's go.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
All right. I have some questions. I've been watching your content for a while, and it's honestly part of the reason why I'm a Zionist. I think it's definitely shaped a lot of my beliefs and views. I do think that you have a very moderate approach. I think it's very optimistic, which can be good. But I guess my question for you is do you really think that peace is achievable just through communication and through putting our conflicts aside and just talking about these issues? Because I'm sure, as you know, the civilians in Gaza overwhelmingly support Hamas. Hamas runs the Department of Education.
Where are you getting those stats from? The statistics that you saw?
I know they've gone down since the invasion.
Not only that, but you have to imagine that in Gaza, if a Palestinian says anything against Hamas, they get killed.
That's true, yeah.
So if someone is coming with a questionnaire in Gaza and asking people, hey, what do you think about Hamas? And there's 5 Hamas next to them. What do you think they're going to say? So I think the statistics are wrong. Do I think it's a large percentage? Yes. I don't think it's necessarily...
Do you think it's the majority?
It could be. For me, it's between 40 to 60.
Okay,
which is still way too big.
Right.
And it's less today after what happened in Gaza.
True. Yeah.
But still shows that you still have a large percentage of the population there that doesn't necessarily agree with that. And I would say those who've come to those conclusions, the reason they see it that way is because they think, okay, we suffer. The reason why we suffer is because Israel exists, which obviously we know is not true, but that's what they think. And the way we end that suffering is by destroying Israel. And the only people willing to destroy Israel is Hamas.
Right.
So their conclusion of hating us is not from its core of wanting to hate us, but as a method to get to what they truly want.
Right.
And if Israel came and provided what they truly want, which is a reality of freedom and respect and equality and a good life, then there would be no more vacuum that it would exist that would allow Hamas to step in and to take their suffering and manipulate them against us.
But Israel already preaches that.
But it doesn't do that
they
in
don't
practice.
Listen. It doesn't do it in
No,
practice.
Palestinians are suffering in Gaza, Palestinians
That's
suffering
true.
in the West Bank.
That's true.
And even though we didn't create their suffering, we have the power to be able to resolve it.
Okay.
And as Jews, we have this message of tikkun olam and ol hagoyim, healing the world and being a light to all nations. Tikkun babayit im abnei dodim, healing our own home with our own cousins.
Right.
Before we even talk about the rest of the world and the rest of the nations.
Right.
So again, I look at it as Israel didn't create the problems Palestinians are in. The British convinced us we were enemies. All the surrounding Arab nations attacked us. We were defending ourselves, and as a consequence of war, we're in this reality. And now that we're here, Israel does have the power to create freedom of speech, to allow Palestinian leaders to rise up, to represent their real peoples, to be able to influence people's minds. Imagine you're a kid and you're growing up, you suffer, and the only noise that you hear is Israel's at source, kill Israel, or all of a sudden you have another person who's like, well, we suffer, but the way to end our suffering is not by attacking Israel, it's to be able to build relations with Israel, to live together. I can guarantee you many people would choose that over this.
Well, also, the reason why people hear the prior and not the latter is because Hamas runs the Department of Education in Gaza. And so from a young age, they teach these kids that Israel is the villain.
I brought back 3 suitcases filled with Hamas propaganda, coloring books, stickers, magazines. Took it out of Gaza when I got out of Gaza.
Right.
And it shows what they really teach them. In a coloring book, you're 3, 4, 5 years old, and you're taught that the Yahud, the Jew, is the worst thing in the world, and it's the most honorable thing to kill them.
I've seen some of
So
it, yeah.
imagine a kid, no child is born
Evil,
right?
Agreed.
They're born pure.
Agreed.
And so this is a problem. You go to the source of where it's causing it and not to the symptoms of what's created.
Agreed.
So do I believe in a reality we can overcome? Yes. Look at the Germans. A civilization through the Nazis that wanted to kill all the Jews and succeeded in killing 6 million. 10 years later, that same civilization was supporting the state of Israel.
Right.
So I'm not saying it's the same situation, but the reason I bring this example is you would think that the biggest enemy of the Jews, how could in 10 years they go from one to the next?
Right.
So if us as cousins living in this land, there are ways that we can actually be able to achieve that, and even quicker if we do the right thing.
Okay, and how do you think we can achieve that? First step is to remove Hamas out of power, right?
For sure, but even while we do that, to change the relationship Palestinians have. First of all, create freedom of speech.
Right.
Invest in infrastructure, in water recycling plants, in sewage systems, in roads, in
Well,
job
how do we
opportunities.
do that if Hamas is still in power?
Well, they're not really in power anymore.
What do you mean?
Because we've taken over Gaza. They're like
Right.
in Rafah, but
Okay,
they're not
sure.
going to be there for long.
Right.
Definitely not pulling out and letting them take back power.
Right.
Now fully control Gaza, start changing the relationships Palestinians have towards Israel,
Okay.
which unfortunately under Bibi I don't necessarily see that happening.
Right.
I do think we should be strong on our enemies. We should create a reality for people not to be recreated into enemies to begin with, which is
Right.
unfortunately not what we're doing. But if we change the experience of Palestinians in Gaza and change the experience of Palestinians in the West Bank, we would see much less of a rejection. And when people would reject us, most of the Palestinians would go to those people and say, what are you doing? You know the Druze in Israel? There's a population
Druze?
called Druze, D-R-U-Z-E.
No, I don't know.
So it's this minority population, and they live in Israel, they serve in the army, they serve in the government, proud, waving the flag of Israel. You go to their communities, it's like everything written in Arabic, but you have Israel flags.
Nice,
Why?
okay.
Because they're like, we're not Jews,
But they've seen the
but
experience.
this is our home.
Right.
And in our home, we're respected, we're protected, we're given honor. And so you would see a Palestinian looking at Israel in that way if they experience Israel the way the Druze are experiencing Israel.
Agreed. Okay. Okay, maybe like future generations, if they start off with that experience, that could be possible. But do you think that the current Palestinians who have grown up with so much hatred and so much education against, to hate Jewish people, do you think that can be reversed?
A Palestinian today that was like, I support Hamas.
Right.
20 minutes speaking to him, I agree with you, you're my brother, we have a right
Really?
to live in the sun.
What can we agree on? 75 years of occupation of Palestine. And excuse me, all the Jews in Palestine, they are squatters from all over the world.
No.
Yes, they are. Enough occupation. Get out. Let them get out. Go back to Poland, Holland, Russia, Ukraine,
we can't-
whatever they brought. We against Zionism.
But
The
Zionism
ones
just
that-
means I should have a right to live there, for me. So at one point, a generation has to get up and say, Khalas, okay?
Khalas.
We are a family, and we will live in this land together, and we'll respect one another, and the world will no longer manipulate us and use us for their own benefits. And now we're going to change the world once we do that,
I hope so.
inshallah.
What's your name?
Rudy,
Rudy? I am Yusuf.
nice to meet you, Yosef.
Nice to meet you. Have a good one.
Take care. You too.
We are a good conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, but do you think that could happen on a larger scale? You think so? Okay.
Yes. And you know what? There's many Israelis who are like, I'm not messing with Palestinians, they're all terrorists. But if they change their experience with Palestinians, you can change that.
I agree, yeah.
We can evolve quickly. Humanity evolves very quickly, right? And we're actually evolving quicker now in our generation than we are in previous generations.
Right.
So it is possible, but it has to come first with a change of experience.
Okay. I see that. That makes sense. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your
Sure,
time.
bro.
It was nice to talk
Likewise.
to you. Could I get a picture actually
Yeah.
as well?